the Russian oil game, who really wins in India's energy trade? Welcome to Accountable India, the podcast where we dig into the stories that shape our world, peeling back the layers to reveal what's really going on. I'm your host, Dr. Rakesh Verma, and today we are diving into a hot topic that's been making waves: India's massive imports of Russian oil. Who's buying it? Why? And most importantly, who's actually profiting? Spoiler alert, it's not the average Indian. Let's break it down with facts, figures, and a no-nonsense look at the players involved. Buckle up, because this is a story of geopolitics, billionaires, and a whole lot of oil. Let's start with the basics. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, India has become one of the world's biggest buyers of Russian crude oil. Before the war, Russian oil made up just 0.2% of India's crude imports. By 2025, that number skyrocketed to 35 to 40%, making Russia India's top oil supplier, surpassing traditional partners like Iraq and Saudi Arabia. In July 2025 alone, India imported about 1.6 million barrels per day from Russia. That's a staggering shift. But who's behind this oil rush? Two names dominate the conversation: Mukesh Ambani's Reliance Industries and Nayara Energy, which is 49% owned by Russia's state-owned Rosneft. Together, these private refiners account for over 50% of India's Russian oil imports, processing between 1.7 and 2 million barrels daily in 2025. Reliance, with its massive Jamnagar refinery, the world's largest, has been the biggest player, snapping up 77 million barrels of Russian Urals crude in the first half of 2025 alone. Nayara, operating a 20 million ton per year refinery in Vadinar, Gujarat, isn't far behind, processing almost entirely Russian crude. Why did they jump on this? Simple: money. After Western sanctions hit Russia in 2022, Russian oil was sold at steep discounts, sometimes $10 per barrel below global benchmarks. Indian refiners like Reliance and Nayara saw a golden opportunity. They bought cheap, refined it into products like diesel and petrol, and sold it at a premium on the global market, including to countries like the US and in Europe, which had banned direct Russian oil imports. For example, between January 2024 and January 2025, Reliance earned roughly 724 million euros, that's about 6,850 crore rupees, exporting fuel refined from Russian crude to the US alone. Nayara exported 184 million euro worth of fuel to the US in the same period, with 124 million euro coming from Russian crude. That's some serious cash. Now, you might be thinking, cheap oil sounds great for India, right? It should mean lower fuel prices for the average consumer, help stabilize the economy, maybe even keep inflation in check. That's what we've been told. This was all in the national interest. But here's where the story gets murky. Despite India saving an estimated $9 to $11 billion annually on its oil import bill thanks to discounted Russian crude, fuel prices at the pump haven't budged much. Petrol in India costs around $1.17 per liter, higher than in China, where per capita income is 5 times greater. So, where's the benefit for the average Indian? Let's talk about who is benefiting. Reliance and Nayara have been raking in record profits. Reliance's stock price surged 34% since the Ukraine war began, while global giants like ExxonMobil stayed flat. Refining margins for diesel jumped 71% in early 2022, and Reliance even delayed maintenance at its Jamnagar refinery to keep churning out fuel at those juicy margins. Nayara, meanwhile, has been a key conduit for Russia to bypass Western sanctions, refining crude and selling it as Indian fuel. But the profits? They're largely staying with the billionaires. Mukesh Ambani's net worth has climbed to around $100 billion, and he's not alone in this game. Enter Gautam Adani. While Adani's group didn't directly buy Russian oil, they've cashed in on the logistics side. Adani's ports and shipping operations have handled the influx of Russian crude arriving at Gujarat's ports, where both Reliance's Jamnagar and Nayara's Vadinar refineries are located. Adani Enterprises saw a 30% profit jump in early 2022, partly thanks to the global commodity surge triggered by the Ukraine war. And let's not forget the recent partnership between Ambani and Adani, where their companies, GUBP and Adani Total Gas, are teaming up to expand fuel retail networks across India. It's a cozy arrangement for two of India's richest men, both with close ties to the ruling BJP government. So, what about the national interest claim? The Indian government, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has defended these oil purchases, saying energy security is a top priority. And sure, securing cheap oil in a volatile global market makes sense on paper. But critics argue the benefits haven't trickled down to the 140 crore Indians. State-owned refiners like Indian Oil Corporation and Bharat Petroleum, which supply 90% of India's fuel pumps, mostly rely on costlier oil from the Middle East. Private players like Reliance and Nayara, required to supply only a fraction of domestic pumps, have focused on exporting refined fuel for bigger profits. An opposition MP, Jawahar Sirka, even called this a graft scandal in plain sight, pointing to the cozy relationship between Modi and these tycoons. Now, the plot thickens with geopolitics. The US and EU are cracking down. In July 2025, the EU banned imports of diesel and other fuels refined from Russian crude, even if processed in third countries like India. They also slapped direct sanctions on Nayara Energy, hitting its access to European markets and technical support. The US, under President Trump, announced a 25% tariff on Indian goods, citing India's Russian oil purchases as an irritant. Trump's threat of 100% secondary sanctions looms large, and analysts warn that shifting away from Russian oil could spike India's import bill by $9 to $11 billion. That's a tough pill to swallow for an economy already juggling inflation and a trade deficit. Reliance is already pivoting, buying Prisya Murban crude from the UAE to diversify away from Russia. But replacing Russian oil entirely? That's easier said than done. India's refineries are optimized for Russia's heavier, sulfurous crude, and switching to alternatives like Middle Eastern or US oil would be costly and complex. Plus, the discounts on Russian oil have shrunk to under $2 per barrel, making the economic case less compelling. Yet, with geopolitical pressure mounting, the days of easy profits from Russian oil might be numbered. So, let's sum it up. Mukesh Ambani's Reliance and Nayara Energy have been the biggest buyers of discounted Russian oil, turning it into massive profits through global exports. Gautam Adani's ports and logistics have kept the oil flowing, adding to his empire's gains. The government calls it national interest, but the numbers tell a different story: sky-high fuel prices for Indians, billions in profits for a select few, and now, looming sanctions that could cost the country dearly. The real question is, how long can this game go on, and who will pay the price when the music stops? That's it for today's episode of Accountable India. If you found this deep dive into India's Russian oil saga eye-opening, share it with a friend and let us know your thoughts. Are Ambani and Adani just savvy businessmen, or is there more to this story? Drop us a line on social media or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep questioning, keep digging, and stay curious. Jai Hind.